being able to take the sexual energy and put it towards other non-sexual things. And that's like a masterful thing to be able to do.
Hello and welcome to the Fuck Suffering Podcast. I am your hostess, Ray Hance, and I'm so happy you're here today. I really couldn't overestimate the delight that I took in this conversation with Scoutleader Wiley. We covered a whole lot of subjects, everything from sacred virginity to the discomforts of pleasure, stability and stagnation, the delights of struggle and the reluctance toward ease, mushrooms, systems theory, nervous system regulation, separation, belonging and individuation, seeking chaos, animism, mothering, leaning into openness, privacy and shame, the crone inside the maiden, being 26. How do you become a healthy systemic element? Forcing and allowing, Buddhism and Shintoism, guiding people over thresholds. Oh, this was a total delight. What is Scout's question for the I Ching? What am I becoming?
It really puts into perspective just how it like humans have like almost like an inbuilt superiority complex, because we presuppose that we're special in this particular way. And it's true that we are special in a particular way in the sense of like human cognition, and the way that we experience reality is unique to us, but other living beings are so similar to that.
Well, they have their own.
It's not even important that we're special.
Right, exactly.
It's like, yes, we are special, and our specialness is like so just barely even that much different from any other mental activity in the universe, that it's like, why are we hyper focusing on it? You know, it's like,
we're also wielding it pretty poorly.
Yeah. It's like, why brag about something you can't even use well?
Right. It's like, look at my bike, but I can't really ride it without training wheels. Like, my mountain bike is so amazing, but it has training wheels on it. You know, like, that's kind of how I feel about human consciousness. Like, we haven't really gotten it yet. Like, it's so much more powerful and so much less special. Yeah. I think that's totally like what you're saying. It's like, our version of it is specific, but not special. Just like each one of us, like, we're specific, but not special or separate. You know, it's just, we're all just like Jack in the Boxing out of the ecology. You know, it's like, oh God, who cares? You know, it's like, pop goes the weasel, pop goes another weasel. There's your personality. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. Well put.
It's just it's our good fortune to be alive at these times, popping out of these. I mean, this is like, I am just like stunned sometimes when I think like, oh my God, it was 2007, the iPhone came out. So, I mean, we've only had these tools for such a short period of time. And like what we're doing right now, and like the work that I'm doing right now, and I'm just like, I could not have done that 10 years ago. I could not be doing what I'm doing today 10 years ago.
Mm.
And that all of our jobs, our mission, our ways of creating, our ways of sharing are just brand spanking new. It really makes me so hopeful.
Yeah.
And all of you like delightful young people, I feel like make me so hopeful too. Like you and Sophie and Tata and like all the people that are out there just like doing, who are like cutting edge thinkers. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, yay, like finally, like hearing your sense of authority is so inspiring to me. Like your natural confidence is incredibly inspiring because you're not waiting for that external validation. Mm-hmm. You're like sharing it with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not coming from some previous hierarchical institutional authority.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I feel like people like myself, well, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like Tata and Sophie both have this like essence of like, it's almost like we're connected to our own elderhood while we're still young.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
It's like pre-elderhood or whatever. It's very strange.
Yeah.
that's how I describe my own experience. Is like, I feel like crone me is like speaking through maiden me. Like humans are natural time binders and stuff. Like time's not linear, but we make it that way. And that's like a cool thing that we actually do. And then like when you can like have this linear time like span across multiple lives, that's a profound thing that I feel like.
Well, like what you're saying about the crone being within the maiden and like all of those threads being lived at the same time. Yeah, it's like the ash and the flame inside the firewood. Like that they all exist at the same time. All of those potentials are so alive at the same time. It's just like, where is the spark directed in this moment, you know?
Yeah. That's actually my question. Yeah. That's actually my question. Like, it's funny too, because my question's like not fully formed. And I tried to spend the hour beforehand kind of trying to figure it out. But then I just ended up playing this song, and the song is about how like oh my God, this is going to be public.
Actually, it's totally anonymous. If you like, my default is anonymous. If you don't want it to be anonymous, let me know.
No, I'm cool with it not being anonymous. That's my like whole thing is like, oh, I'm terrified to be open and vulnerable about this. Like that means I need to do it.
Oh,
and that's the thing I'm trying to like encourage people to do is to like not desire privacy due to shame. But like, it's fine to desire privacy, but like, I want to encourage people to not hide behind the concept of privacy and then like not confront shame. And like, the only reason I would ever want this to not be public would be due to shame. So like, but I had an experience of like meeting my child from the future, and I wrote a song about it.
Oh,
practicing that song before I got on this call with you.
Do you want to play it?
Oh, it's not finished yet.
Oh, okay.
I totally would. But I'll send it to you because it's for like a songwriting competition that I'm a part of. So I'm gonna have it finished by tomorrow. But
sweet.
Yeah, I can send it to you, and maybe you can have it be like a supplement to the podcast.
Awesome. I would love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah. So your question is about that?
My question is just about like what I am like currently stepping into is like this higher level of maturity in my work and also in my relationships. And like that's being sort of propelled by this experience of like meeting a child that like I am meant to be responsible for. So even if it's like one of those, like I frequently have experiences that are like, oh, this is what the future is going to look like. And then it changes. So I'm not like married to this idea of this specific experience actually manifesting. But what it's like encouraging me to do is like look at myself from the perspective of like the me that does have a child, and like what foundation do I want to set for that experience if it is truly going to happen, which it's like, even if like it's not going to happen in the way that I'm necessarily intuiting or predicting, it's probably likely to still happen. It's not like I'm very against having a child. I'm very indifferent towards having a child, but like the idea of like a child choosing me to like enter the world through is like really encouraging me to look at whether or not if I were that child, like would I want that? What kind of person do I want to be, basically, is kind of and like what kind of people should I surround myself with in order to have that experience be good for that child? Like,
isn't that true of every relationship too?
Yeah.
Can I be the person? Mm-hmm. Where am I falling short of being the person that I would want to be in that relationship with?
Yeah. Yeah. That's well put. That's totally well put.
That's so beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy too, because it's like I was talking to Hannah the other day and I was thinking like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm aging really quickly. Like I'm 26.
Oh gosh, are you really? Oh, that's so fantastic.
26, and I'm like 36. It's like, but I'm not though. It's like, I am 26, but I feel like I have the responsibilities of a 36-year-old right now. It's crazy.
And you're 6 and you're 86. And we all are. And that, like, what the moment squeezes from us from, it's like, it varies so often.
Yeah.
It's always a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so exciting to be all those things at once.
It is. It's exciting and it's terrifying. It's like sublime. Like, I think
it is sublime
because it's like, it's horrifying in its bigness, and it's also like really humbling and gratifying.
And as long as you can stay soft in the bigness and understand that that's coming through you, but it's not you. It's what you're responsible for, but it's not yours.
Right. Yeah.
Like that ego game it can be so slippery. So your question then is around what you're becoming?
Yeah, it's like, what am I stepping into? Because like my life is centered around relationships, right? Even my
everyone's is.
But I'm like fully aware of that and like wanting to embrace that, because like even my like business or whatever is like relationship oriented. It's about building and facilitating people's relationships with first themselves. And then like through their relationship with me, they deepen their relationship with themselves. Right. And in parts of themselves. And then like, how do those parts of themselves then relate to other people and other people's parts of themselves? And then how, and their relationship with society, with culture, with the ecosystems that they're in. Like how do you become a good systemic element, a healthy systemic element?
I love that phrasing.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love that.
And so it's centered around like how I learn how I like can facilitate that for other people is by like learning how to do it myself. And so I'm wanting to like see like, okay, so what am I stepping into in my relationships, specifically with other people, but then of course that's going to reflect things about my relationship with myself.
And with the more than human world.
Yeah. That's becoming a huge part, of it now more too, because I'm wanting to bridge the gap. I'll get a little bit specific about like the work that I'm doing. Like my general purpose or intention is to bridge the gap between like the religious animist conception of there being like other beings, or there being like spirits, or being like consciousness that's like at the heart of humanity. And then the other perspective, which is like consciousness emerges as a result of like this system that's not alive in the biological sense, but is definitely alive in the metaphorical sense, where it's like
in the pure energetic sense.
Yeah. And the energy, exactly. You're on the same page, I think, with me about that. So like wanting to facilitate communication between these seemingly opposite perspectives on reality that are really just looking at the same reality, right? And so like my relationship with myself is my relationship to the non-human realms, is my relationship to spirits, is my relationship to dead matter, right? Is all of that stuff it's my relationship with myself. I can't escape it. So like, how do I more fully embrace that so that I can like teach it more effectively? And then how do I like prepare myself for this like responsibility that I feel like is calling me in terms of like mothering, not just like in the literal sense, which like I do feel is like perhaps on the horizon, maybe more quickly than I like even like would care to admit, but like also mothering in a theoretical sense, or in a metaphorical sense, with like guiding people through like thresholds in their life. And because I think like, what is a mother's job, right? It's to sustain life, but it's also to help you cultivate your relationship with yourself once she stops being the sustainer of your life. Because there's a certain point where, when you're born, one of the first things they do is cut the umbilical cord, and that symbolizes your separation from mother. And then mother's job is to kind of like help you cultivate your own inner mother so that you're not dependent on her anymore. You can still have a relationship with her. Obviously you always will. And that'll always be a unique relationship. Right. But, that sort of individuation process, like, is mothering. I feel like that's a part of mothering. And so like, if I'm helping people individuate, then I'm kind of mothering, not smother mothering, like in the sense where we think, oh, you're mothering this person, you're coddling them. I'm talking about
mothering in that best sense as like a home to return to.
Right.
And to depart from.
Right.
Well,
Exactly. Yeah.
That your fluidity and coming and going from that space is part of maturity.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the role of an ancestor as different from mother? Like, do you see ancestors as continuing to emerge rather than sometimes I have some experience of the Burkina Faso West African animist view. Like, I've witnessed some of their ceremonies and things. And like, there does seem to be like a sort of static sense of like different ancestor channels or different ancestor frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. And so like, I'm interested in how, like, it seems to me like what it feels like to me is that those entities and those frequencies continue to evolve and adapt and integrate and disintegrate now in this present point in time space. So like, mm-hmm. as archetypical as they may be, like they're also emergent.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. I have never thought of it that way. I don't have an answer for that. I think that's a really interesting inquiry though, because like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I'm trying to see if I understand what your question actually is. So like, it sounds like you're wondering if like something can be both almost like a template and emergent.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole concept of what ancestors are and how, mm-hmm. and how they are very much alive and
right.
present.
Yeah.
And like, are they also emergent, almost like the relationship that you're talking about of a mother? Like how like both ancestors and mothers kind of morph in this enveloping way around us that both launches us and envelops and nurtures, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Because
not all ancestors are nurturing, frankly, but yeah.
Right. We do have some ancestors that are predators and that are perpetrators, and we need to also include them and just to ensure that like we don't, like, I think we have a responsibility to remember the ancestors that we might not want to acknowledge because we have like the contagion heuristic and we don't want to like be in proximity to evil. Right. But
sometimes they're the most present.
Right. Right. Because they're the most neglected, they end up sometimes being the most present. And so, yeah. But okay. So it sounds like I would say it reminds me of what Jacqueline, my Buto teacher. So she's like a part of the Buto tradition, and she, her teachers taught her the definition of ancestor is those who come before us and those who have yet to come after us, which is a really interesting way of putting it because it's
I love that.
Yeah. It makes sense given that like a lot of, even though Buto is like technically a more, well, it's not modern, but it's like, it's certainly not ancient in the sense that it's like an avant-garde expression. But it's like informed by Shintoism because it comes from the same culture as Shintoism. Mm-hmm. It comes from the same region as Shintoism. So it's like, it's almost like there's an echo of Shintoism there, where like the non-being realm is like still considered alive. And so like if someone has yet to be born, it's like the cyclical nature when we think about like the concept of souls and whatnot, which is, on an intellectual level, like to me sounds fucking crazy, but like in my heart, like it resonates. And so like I have yet to reconcile that with my intellectual nature, but I don't think it's impossible.
Thermodynamics really helped me with that.
What was that?
Thermodynamics really helped me with that.
Okay, yeah. So like what?
Like of course you're looking for a new gradient. Like it's not like the whole reincarnation concept just feels to me like just always seeking a new gradient, that it's not necessarily the same hot coffee, but like that energy of the hot coffee finds another place, like,
yeah, that's kind of how I conceptualize of it. But like the part where I have trouble with is the part where like the identity, something about the fundamental identity stays intact. And I've had like past life regressive experiences, but I also have a very powerful, like imaginal, just that's just like a huge part of the way that I experience things. So I feel like I'm kind of diverging from my original point a little bit, which is fine.
I'm so, because then this is also bringing me back to like how when babies come into the world, they do come in with a certain signature or like a key that their life is sung in. Yeah. And so like, I can see not like the identity not being carried, but there is a note that's like carried.
Yeah.
And like,
like an imprint.
Yeah.
Like an imprint on the energy, or the way that the energy has sort of like shifted and formed and then re-culminated. And possibly there are ways that like that energy, like whatever that energy consists of, the different parts kind of could just habitually find each other. Cause like what I've read, I'm not a physicist, but I enjoy the philosophy of physics, like as a person who's not a physicist. Something about that's just really fun for me. And like
totally
the most fun thing.
I love Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman is like the dead guy I'd most like to have.
Yeah. He's like the Mr. Rogers of physics.
I adore him.
Yeah.
He's my dead man.
People like him are the reason why physics can still be accessible to people who aren't physicists.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And so you need people who are like, that's the role of the holy fool, I feel like, is to, is
and then affect
like
that consilience. And then we can affect that consilience between art and science. And then it really things can evolve in beautiful ways, Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Totally.
Exciting. Super exciting.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. It's actually like so exciting. I'm like so happy to be alive in this time in the world. Maybe it's just the beauty of catastrophe, but like, God, it just feels so, I don't know. Give me a time machine and I would be like, no, thank you. I'm all set. Thanks.
Yeah. Same. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is
a special time for sure.
Amazing. This is
amazing. Yeah. I'm glad that you recognize that too, is like, this is like really, like I call these like psychedelic times.
Oh, totally.
Because it's like the weirdness of just like being alive and being stoked on being alive during like massive fucking infrastructure collapse, environmental collapse,
and technological advance.
Yeah. Godlike technology and Paleolithic emotions, like that one guy said.
Right, exactly. It's amazing. Yeah. What a crazy thing to reconcile in each individual psyche, and how like intimate and public and messy and beautiful that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how can our heads not be exploding? Like, it is a time of exploding heads all over the place. It
is. Yes, it is. It's a time of, and of course it's appropriate that like mushrooms are becoming like this crazy, like trendy thing right now when all of this is happening, is like, because the mushrooms are like, I have a really intimate relationship with mushrooms.
So do I.
Like more than any like plant or fungal medicine that exists. Like they feel like a friend, and like, I'm so unsurprised that that's happening at the same time that all this other shit is happening. Because it's like, the mushrooms are like very...
They're teachers of coherence.
Yeah. No, they know how to connect things. It's
Absolutely.
like their job.
Absolutely.
And they're like, oh, now it's time to connect to humans. Like,
oh, all your heads are exploding? Hang on a second. We're going to bring you back into coherence. Just, okay, stop, drop, and roll. Just like... Take
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. The mushrooms. I feel like the mushrooms, if I'm going to personify the mushrooms, like they have like that feeling you get when your friend is like crying and you're like, I know the exact right thing to say as my friend is crying. And you feel really, even though your friend is clearly suffering, you feel so good because you're like, you know the right thing to say. Like, that's how the mushrooms feel.
Totally. Like they never lose the wide view.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, we got you humans. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I won't. They're like, you're throwing up in the bathroom because you drank too much tequila, and I'm going to hold your hair back because you lost your ponytail holder.
It totally feels like that. Like I have a very special relationship with Amanita muscaria specifically too. Like it is like always coming to me. It's like, okay, come on. Just dry me up, powder me and save me for later. Like you're going to need it. Like we're going to be like, you're going to need to give this to other people. Like, it's incredible though. It's incredible how
had those ones, but
they're very special. A really interesting, very for me, for just like automatic writing, like massive for like when like letting a download just come right out my hands. Like they're incredible for that specifically, especially amazing. But they have to be dried and like a little prep in them, but fabulous overall.
Fair.
Delightful little messengers. So, okay, wait, let's bring it back down to your let's bring the I Ching into this.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
So
we clearly have like catching up to do. If you
I know, right? Or a couple of them. Yeah. So what are you becoming now? So this is it essentially like a what am I becoming question, or what? Or is there more?
I like that because
is there more of a tug on it?
What am I stepping into was how I phrased it, but that's obviously like, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that this is coming from my ego, but I don't want to ask this question from my ego. Like, I feel like my ego's phrasing it, what am I stepping into? Because my ego's narrative is that like, we have to work really, really hard. I feel like what I'm becoming is someone who experiences ease. So yes. I don't want to phrase it in that way. Like, it's not that I can't work hard. It's not that I can't, last year I learned about the value of struggle and tension because I finally accepted that I enjoyed those things. And then I realized that those things were not serving the direction I needed to go in. And that ease was actually like the direction I needed to go in. And I had to confront like my fears around that and stuff. And like, I'm still confronting my fears around that.
Can you, I am a big proponent of ease, and I find people's resistance to it so fucking juicy. Can you say a little bit more about like what your fears around it are? This is one of my favorite subjects.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm not fully entirely sure what my it's like, it's more of like I'm a habitual. Are you into astrology at all?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Because I like, it's helpful for me to think about it through the lens of astrology. Because if you look at my birth chart, there's a lot of oppositions and there's like a massive grand square, right? Okay. Between like some rather heavy planets, like Pluto is in there, Saturn is in there. My midheaven is in there. Like there's just a lot of the implications of that astrologically are that like I seek out challenges, I enjoy struggle, I have a narrative about my like I have a narrative about struggle. It's almost like I have inertia in like the direction of pain. But if I have inertia in the direction of pleasure, like I have a fear. It's just not comfortable to me. Like and then I'm, being like, and then there's the whole double Taurus, like,
oh gosh.
yeah, triple Earth thing. Like I have a lot of like Earth in my chart. And then I also have, it's like I have a lot of Earth in my chart, but I'm like Uranus dominant. So it's like this weird combination of unpredictability and instability and this like, so it's like this person who's like seeking stability and routine who like can't really experience that. So it's like this like I'm needing to harmonize like change with structure. And that's kind of like my path is like find
can that be that you can really trust that home space and you can really leap very far from that like having a great deal of faith in your capacity to ground?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what the like last year was like, okay, just fully, completely embrace the chaos because clearly you keep creating it and clearly you're getting something out of doing that. So just fully embrace it, just claim it, just own it, just have it become a part of you. Don't pretend like you want stability and then keep unconsciously seeking out chaos. Just embrace the fact that you are seeking out chaos. So that's what I did. And then through that, I realized that like my desire is to create harmony. And that's why I seek out chaos, because you can't create harmony when there's already harmony. Right. But now I'm like, oh, now I want to like fully experience harmony and like notice that like harmony consists of a certain degree of instability, a certain degree of unpredictability. I won't say instability, but like harmony is like homeostasis. It's like, yes, there's a lot of like dynamic energy within that, but the way it moves and the way it interacts with itself, like if we're looking at a system, right? The way that the parts of the system interact with each other, if the system's going to be stable, it can't be rigid, but it can't be chaos. It has to be like in between. And so like that's the kind of like last year I sort of realized that why I sought out chaos and like how it was benefiting me. And now that I've fully given myself a chance to like embody that, I'm like, okay, I don't want that. I want something else. Actually, I thought I wanted that. What I actually want is this other thing. And that requires like stepping fully into the stability thing now. And so that's leading us to what you said of like, yes, you're exactly right. The ability to ground, like having faith in that, not being afraid that I'll get bored, not being afraid of like the commitment and the routine and like all of those things.
Well, you have to trust that your body will know as soon as that starts to feel like stagnation.
Yeah.
Like trusting yourself to know when stability becomes stagnation.
Oof. I do not though. Like I don't. My relationship with my body is like, so I was speaking with my parents recently, right? And so my parents and I have always had an interesting relationship because I wouldn't say something's actually wrong with me. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with me, but ever since I was a kid, I've had this like way of experiencing physical reality that is definitely not normative.
Like permeable?
Like I was looking into the possibility that I could have like a sensory processing issue or some kind of like neurodivergency that creates like an unpredictable way of like I could have a day where I just like am completely numbed out, even if I do like embodiment stuff and whatnot. Like I could still have a day where it's like I just don't know where my body is. Like I can't do proprioception. Like I don't have balance. It's just like those are just the days that happen. And then other days it's like I can hear and feel everything, and like I can't like leave my bed because it's just too much. You know? Yeah. So like my experience with my body has always been like my dad considered that I might be autistic. I don't think that's true. I mean, he might be right. I don't know. I don't really know if there's like a label for it. I just have an interesting experience of physical reality. And I have an interesting experience of like what you could call like metaphysical reality. Like I do have like, relationships with like what you would maybe call like non-physical beings or whatever. So that's like more like, to me, that experience of metaphysical reality, of like imaginal reality, is so much stronger than physical. So it's like,
and have you had like a lot of dissolution experiences?
Yes, I've had a lot of like ego, like death stuff. That's not related to drugs in any way.
No, I totally know you. Yeah. And that it can be, that's a big ask of a nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big ask for a nervous system to have that level of agility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you worked with lion's mane mushroom at all?
Very briefly, not long enough to really like probably see the effects of it.
I mean, that is like it is really like a super helpful nervous system mushroom.
Yeah.
And part of me feel like hearing you is like, well, you're just building your capacity. Give yourself a break.
Yeah. Well, I've been building my capacity for my entire life.
Well, you're not that. It hasn't been that long. You've only been building your capacity for a quarter century.
Yeah. Thank you for putting things into perspective.
Yeah, like your whole life. Oh wow, yeah, 25. Okay. You might have a little while to go before that settles.
Oh no! Oh. There's more. God damn it!
I mean, that is a big ask. That's a lot to ask of a nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just be gentle with yourself. Yeah. That's self-compassion. Yeah. Self-compassion. Be gentle with yourself. Trust gentleness.
Mm-hmm.
Trust it. And I know it can be hard if you've got like a mind that's just aflame, to trust the grounding, and to trust gentleness, and to trust that earth, and to trust yourself in that space enough to feel when it tips over into stagnation, and you know when to move. Sometimes it's easy to know when to move. Yeah. It's hard to maintain that quietness that really lets the certainty emerge about when to move.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's the much harder thing. It seems so simple, but it's actually the much harder thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That's the trust piece. That's like
it is.
Yeah.
But that's abiding confidence too, because you develop that trust in all that is, no matter what it is in any given moment. So there's nothing you can't move with. There's nothing that you can't metabolize if you have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to let that sink in a little bit. That's a really important little bit of wisdom for me to digest right now.
So what are you stepping into? Let's see. What are you stepping into? You had a little more to that. Do you want to add a little second piece to that?
Well, I like that you phrased it, what am I becoming? Because I think that the phrasing of that is a part of what I'm becoming. Rather than seeing myself as stepping into something and like almost like forcing myself and pushing myself, I'm allowing, and that's a part of what I'm becoming or what I'm called to right now. So like, I think that the way that you phrased it was like especially important.
Let's go with that then. What am I becoming?
Ironically, like in trying to protect myself from like having to experience my own attractiveness, like I was like, oh, I'm smart. And then like guys just like are attracted to me because of that. So it's like, oh, it backfired. Oh no.
Nothing will keep you safe from from people wanting to be around you. Oh no.
Right. Yeah. I'm like just gonna hang out in my freaking ivory tower and philosophize. Right.
Oh yeah.
And then people were gonna be like, "Oh, that's hot." And I'm like, "Wait, no." God damn it!
And you end up feeling victimized by your own charisma.
Yeah. It's like unavoidable. That's probably definitely what I'm becoming sexy. That's what
that like being in that open, like having everything run through you is innately magnetic. you know? So hey, what are you going to do?
So I'm learning.
That's so good. So take three coins that match. It's just easier if they match.
Yeah. I've got.
Okay. Now I want you to feel the question in your hands rather than thinking about it. Like, let the question be in your hands. What am I becoming? Like, what are your hands becoming? What are you becoming? And we're going to have you throw the coins 6 times, all 3 coins 6 times. And each time you throw them, I'm going to have you tell me how many heads and how many tails. Whenever you're ready.
So I'm going to throw each coin 6 times.
No, you're going to throw all 3 coins together 6 times.
Okay.
Hold all 3 in your hands.
Okay.
Feel your question in your hands. Shake them gently. And then just throw them, drop them, whatever feels good to you.
I got 1 heads and 2 tails.
Mm-hmm. Again.
1 heads and 2 tails again. Two heads and 1 tails. Two heads and 1 tails again. Two heads and 1 tails again. Two tails and 1 heads. One more time, right?
Nope, that's it.
Oh, okay.
And interestingly, you had no transforming lines. So when there are no transforming lines, it means you only have 1 hexagram. And so that hexagram is an incredibly crisp, clear, direct, unmistakable picture of your question.
Great.
Yeah, which is nice. It's emptying. Your hexagram is emptying. It's hexagram 41, and it's notice the tide going out. Empty out your car and offer a ride. Return to simplicity and sincerity. Empty your sink of dirty dishes. Empty your cup so it may be filled with something more delicious. This is the solve phase of alchemy. The only thing you should be creating right now is a budget. Keep a close eye on what's coming in and what's going out. Economize, cut the fat. Budgeting leads to prosperity. Do you really need the $7 latte? You don't, not right now. You could buy some crypto with that. Invest. Move all the currency not required for the moment into a useful place. Make offerings, pay it forward. Be generous until there is nothing left around you that you don't absolutely love. Let nothing stagnate. Oh, that's interesting. Let things flow out so they can find where they belong. Pare down what has grown heavy and restore balance. Make empty space and it will be filled. Nature doesn't abhor a vacuum. It calls her in. What do you really want? Drop into your feet so you can feel when you are truly compelled to move. Let go of your identity as an underdog. Life isn't against you. It's clarifying you. Having the capacity to abide in simplicity is a virtue, but not cause for self-righteousness. Nothing is. The insights of fasting could be useful at this time. Take everything down to essence. What remains right here, right now? Take a close look, a very close look. Steward your resources wisely. Level out your energy and disperse it more evenly. Settle in, be pragmatic, get things done. It's time for maintenance. Make repairs with people and things. Seal the leaks, tighten the ship. This is a retrograde period. Things appear to be moving backward, but that's just because you're still, and the motion of surrounding bodies is rattling your sense gates. As usual, to determine the direction of forces, notice where and how you stand. Notice the limitations of your senses. Still to empty. neither keep nor do unnecessary things. When the tide goes out, all manner of life is revealed on the shore.
Yeah, that feels really true.
That's interesting. That's interesting with this stripping down and like going into that earthier, yinnier, darker place. Unencumbered. And like those earths, like that double Taurus is deep embodiment. That's sensual pleasure and deep embodiment.
How do I reconcile the imaginal with the physical? And that's kind of been the whole like premise of my work too, is like the ritual art thing. Like how that shows up for me is like trying to reconcile this like esoteric symbolic reality and not get lost in it, and then also not cling to materiality and get lost in that. But like where do they meet? How do they interact? Like what do they create together kind of thing is like the inquiry and the path, and like the it's like the guiding question, I think, for me. For
me, they meet in the ecology of erotic emergence.
Nice.
That's going on all the time.
Yeah.
Have you tried a non-orgasmic self-pleasure practice where you just learn to hold a lot of energy?
No, I don't think so. I have. So like I was like celibate for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt good because I was forced to like contain desire rather than like try to escape desire through engaging desire, like engaging the object of my desire.
Totally.
I was forced to like just sit with the desire and not try to get the desire met necessarily, not because I felt like the desire was wrong, but like I was trying to skip steps. I like wasn't giving myself permission to feel and approve of the desire before engaging the object of my desire. So now I have to like, and then I like spent like the past year just feeling desire and noticing the criticisms around that desire, and also noticing the imprint and the blueprint that led to the desire and why I desired what I desired, and just really just unraveling that. And now I'm like in a situation where I can interact with desire more skillfully and more like with more acceptance, and also like, but now I'm almost being called to like re-engage with that desire.
Well, like this would be actually amplifying desire and learning how to amplify and hold. And that is
say more about that.
That's interesting to me also in terms of this thing that you're saying of feeling untethered from your body sometimes, and like,
yeah,
and this thing of like that you are really building nervous system capacity to hold an incredible amount of life force energy that's running through you. Like you have an incredible. For me, I found in my own personal practice that like a non-orgasmic self-pleasure practice has been maybe the most direct way to build that capacity. To like be able to really like open the floodgates, so to speak, of sensation while remaining utterly at home in myself.
Well, because I'm thinking, and I'm like, well, that sounds like how I do yoga, which I haven't done yoga in a long time. But anytime I did yoga, it was more of like I would like combine yoga with like Bartniev.
That you were talking about. Yeah. I'm not very familiar with that at all. It sounds fascinating though.
It's really fascinating because it's like, it looks at, the fundamentals, and the purpose of yoga is to like increase your capacity to like stabilize the body during meditation, right? So there's like an increase of mastery, and then there's like an intentional decrease of mastery. That when you put those two together,
or a decrease of mastery or a restoration of innocence.
Yeah. that's that. I guess, or even like just like that, but also something else. It's like there's something else, but I don't have words for it right now. But yeah, restoration of innocence is a good way of putting it.
Because there's a lot of mastery in the restoration of innocence.
Yeah. Well, what is so it's like, because like the refinement that we think comes with like being an adult, when you're doing like Bartnia, if it's like experiencing that, it makes me feel like I've never moved my body before. So it's like that, and then like the wisdom of that.
Mm-hmm. Like in Zen, there's beginner's mind, and this is like going back to beginner's body.
Right. Yeah, exactly. For beginner's body mind.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But then like pairing that with something like yoga, which is like very intensely geared towards refinement and progress and whatnot, of trying to get the body to hold higher and higher levels of energy, like you're saying earlier. Of course, if you don't have the foundation, you can't do that with yoga. So it's like, it's interesting to have those two things interact. And like when I do that kind of feels like a self-pleasure practice of just like moving my body around, like just innocently moving it, not even moving it. Like, cause I think of like my body, and I think of like the female body, and I think of the way that the female body is like mythologized in society, in like a consumerist capitalist society. And it's like, it's a commodity. It's like me moving my body automatically is like a sexual thing in a particular kind of way. Whereas like, I like found so much pleasure in just like moving my body like a baby and being like, wow, this is just like, I'm a human being moving my body. Like for once, like it's not like I'm self-conscious about like, am I being sexual if I like do this, or like, am I being perceived in this way? And then like that kind of pressure to like not be seen that way doesn't like come up.
That's
like,
interesting, because part of the reason I suggested is because this seems to be coming up that there's like a pressure for you not to be seen that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's like some kind of sacrifice of identity and fully embodying Eros for you, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Because if you're talking about having some things that come up for you about feeling like disembodied or dissociated from your body, that like having some pleasure mastery and actually encouraging high sensation within pleasure rather than the more neutral energy of yoga, but like really actually being in your pussy, out of your head and in your pussy, is like, there's something very activating and like to some extent triggering about that yoga doesn't provide.
No, yoga does provide that. Like that's kind of what I'm saying, is like the way that I do yoga, immediately as soon as I get on the mat, it's like just pussy juice everywhere flowing, like just out of me.
Full
yeah.
body.
No, yoga is like very, very sexually activating for me.
Oh, interesting.
Before I even actually start even moving, it's just like I can just like stand there, like in mountain pose, just like getting ready to prepare myself to like begin the movement, and it's just like immediately activates like my sexual energy. Yeah, it's not a neutral experience for me at all, actually. Yeah. So that's why I brought that up when you said like, do you have like a non-orgasmic self-pleasure practice? And I'm like, yoga has kind of just like always been that for me. Even I haven't even like tried to turn it into that. It just that for some reason brings that out of me just naturally.
Because it just like how is that just like a basic amplification of energy that you feel in that?
No, it's very connected to like sexual energy specifically, for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But then like my energy, like I feel like is like all of my energy feels like it's like energy just feels like it's sexual. Like to me,
no, that's why it's all eros. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all eros.
Yeah, like when you say eros, I'm like, no, it's more like specific expression of eros that's uncomfortable for me. It's not eros itself, you know?
Oh, that's okay.
Because I'm a musician, right?
Right.
And like music and singing, like singing is another one of those things that like immediately activates that for me without even really needing to try. Like when I'm making music, it's very,
when you're completely in that, when you're in that emotional space. Yeah. You're in the flow of that totally space.
Yeah, I don't even have to like think about it. I don't have to like do anything that would be considered sexual. It's just like, boom, it happens. Like,
right.
That part of me is just, that's that part of me, the creative part of me, that like writing is like that for me too. That's like, it's all totally erotic.
Exactly.
It's specifically engaging it in relationship where I start to have, like with other people, where I start to have like a feeling of mistrust or,
I understand much better now. Okay. That I understand much, much better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Well, that's right. Cause it's such a potent thing to ask someone else to hold with you.
Yeah. Yeah. The responsibility of it is like, I have like almost like, I wouldn't even say it's puritanical. It's just like, there is so much entangled in that experience for me that a random person couldn't possibly like, it has to be like, it's weird. It's like,
well, you have access to a lot, and that's a lot to ask somebody to come into that field.
Yeah. Yeah. But it also is attractive to people who like don't have access to it.
And that's where you have to be careful.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is like, I do actually have to be careful. And like, that comes across as like perhaps a little bit puritanical given like the cultural, we have a lot more permission now to like engage sexuality in a casual way. And like, that almost is like a blessing because I get to choose to like be discerning as opposed to being forced to be discerning, if that makes sense.
It does.
But I still do have to be discerning. Like, and I've had to like voluntarily be discerning, as opposed to like someone telling me that my sexual energy is bad. And then like, as a result of that, I like imprison myself. Like that's not even really like where I'm coming from, right? Like at this point in my life, but my fear is that like I am, and I can't tell the difference, or that like I'll be seen that way. You know? And then like it will come across as like a judgment to like other women or like to guys who like direct their desire at me. Cause like I can be very like, guys direct their desire at me and I'm just like, I'm not going to engage this.
There's a very real thing of like,
I can't engage. Like I would love to, I'm flattered, but like, I just like, you don't really understand. And like, I've had to come into like understanding this like responsibility I have over this like potent eros. Cause it's like what you said. It's like, yeah, it's a lot. It's a huge responsibility. And like, it's not something that I can experience with just anyone.
And sometimes
some people totally can. Like, I know people who like, they make their living off of allowing people to experience their eros, and they're like sexual healers, and like that's great. And like this extends not just to like the tantric people, but it also extends to like strippers who like get a really bad rep. Like a lot of strippers are like sexual healers who are you know, doing the Lord's work in the strip.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I just want to give those people a shout out.
100%.
Like, I respect the shit out of that. I actually tried that path because when I first kind of like got into that and experiencing that energy and noticing it, I was like, oh, I'll just do this. Mm-hmm. But it's not right for me.
Right.
That is meant to be poured into like my music, my art, my dancing, and like that stuff is like where that energy is supposed to go. It's not a very like sexual place for it to go. But it is.
It's a very erotic place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that differentiation is so important in terms of people opening up and feeling safe being blown open.
Yeah.
Like being able to walk around blown open.
Right.
that differentiation between sexuality and eros, and especially because we've gotten so trapped in the commodification of sexuality that it's like,
yeah,
very hard to feel that difference in your body, especially when you've grown up a woman, you know, it's really, really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
That is so interesting.
Yeah. So when you said emptying and you like read that, I wasn't initially thinking sexuality, but now I'm starting to think like, oh yeah, like emptying myself of expectations that I have for myself to be a particular kind of sexual, like the sexual that I think everyone else is being with like casual sex and stuff. And not holding the responsibility of validating the sexual paradigm. Just because I don't oppose of it doesn't mean that I have to engage with it. And then my fear is that like, because like it's not for me, my fear is that like I'm going to be left out and I'm going to be perceived as someone who's like not sex positive or something like that. And then like, but it's like an energy that is too much for my nervous system. It's overwhelming to have that.
And sometimes
like
that
I consider myself poly. Like actually, I don't consider myself monogamous. But the implications of that are that like I would have like a bunch of partners, but like I don't have any partners. Because of this like need to be discerning and, you know, all that stuff, you know?
Yeah. Cause sometimes that big magnetism will attract a lot of rusty nails.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's,
yes, I do. Yeah. I do know what you mean. So
it's
I did not know what you meant, but I do.
That's a beautiful place for you to be right now, to not let like a sense of FOMO fuck with your integrity.
Yeah.
You know, like that's actually really brave and beautiful and amazing and virtuous in the truly best sense of the word. Like, I think we really we've steered away from valuing character.
Yeah.
And I think pleasure and character are run in parallel in so many beautiful ways. So like we each have to discern that line for ourselves. Like how generous are we, you know, with our sexuality, with our sense of eros, with our bodies. Like that is really each person's determination. And so their character is formed according to their nature.
Yeah.
You know, but for us to each respect our nature rather than what other people are doing, getting out of that habit of comparison, which just brings unfettered misery, no matter what the point of comparison is.
Yeah.
You know,
it's interesting too, because like, I'm thinking of like the concept of like the archetype of the virgin and like the original meaning of that word virgin and like how it's like come to be like,
say more about that. I love that topic.
So you would, yeah. So like the original meaning of the word virgin means like someone who's like sexual energy is the reason why their sexual energy is pure is because it's like they're in relationship with it and they're very much like their divinity is very much tied into their relationship with their sexual energy. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they like are pure because they don't have sex. The purity comes from like if you think about like mixing two substances, right? Before you mix the substances, they're pure. But when you mix the substances, that doesn't mean they're corrupted. It just means there's a different substance, right? So when two people's sexual energies merge, you would just have a different substance, right? And so like with the virgin, it's like her substance is just like her own substance, her sexual substance, right? As opposed to like a different feminine archetype of like the lover, where like she knows how to like, you know, or he or whoever, like the lover is just like defined by its ability to create a new substance by combining its substance with another. The virgin is like kind of the opposite of that. It's like the substance before it's merged with another substance. Mm-hmm. And like they typically are like desired a lot, but like the idea is that like that energy just goes towards other things besides really, not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily go towards relationship with another. It goes towards like, and this kind of challenges the whole like polarity conversation, which believes that like purpose is an inherently masculine trait. The virgin is like devoting all of her sexual energy to purpose as opposed to relationship, which you can do both obviously as a human being because we're not archetypes, but like the archetype is specifically referring to being able to take the sexual energy and put it towards other non-sexual things. And that's like a masterful thing to be able to do. You know, it kind of it's like the difference between like fully engaging primally and like using the primal to then like inform all these other parts of us. Cause like we do have this primal part of us that is like very powerful. But of course, if we're driven by the primal thing, like we don't get to experience all of these other things that we're capable of.
Well, it's like the high priestess versus the empress sort of in the tarot deck.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. And that's really interesting that because that high priestess is like, she embodies that field of emptiness in the Buddhist sense, like that emptiness.
Yeah.
That ascended, expanded, like suchness, you know, like that boundless suchness, you know?
Yeah.
And if that is like the essence of actually hexagram 41, it is emptying. It is removing all of that until only that fizzing, just reverberations of fizzing are left in the space of her.
Yeah. So this hexagram is essentially letting me know that I'm becoming my version or expression of this like priestess.
That it is so interesting. And it is, the trigrams are mountain over the lake. And
wow. That's so significant too, because like mountains and lakes, that kind of terrain comes up for me a lot in meditation, as far as like when I think of like, what's my home? Like, where is my home? Where do I belong? I always feel like it's like by mountains and water. Mm-hmm. Specifically like in between mountains and water is like where I feel myself. And I like, there's a certain like energy when like the mountain and the lake come together, is like the flow of the lake and the stability of the mountain are like, that's like that Hierophant priestess, like coming together kind of thing. That is like really, wow.
Yeah. That joy. And in the lake trigram, the yin is held up by two yang lines. And when that lake trigram is doubled, it's joy.
Yeah, cool.
Like, because there is that thing of like, all that power of water, like all of that shape-shifting power of water held in this contained space. So there's that sense too of all of this, like every possible shape held, every potential held, and yeah, guarded by this mountain. And what comes along to like move it is like the system itself, like just the whole system of like the condensation that the mountain inspires, like this gentle pulling up, you know, and then coming back down again. And is it the same rain? Has that rain been there before? Who knows? But it still joins the body of water, the broader body of water, as we are all one body, essentially. So water is one body that's just being moved around all the time and has always been here, just like us.
Yeah.
It's always just this reshuffling of gradients.
Yeah.
And that's like water is the lineage of all life. And we are 70% water. And so here we are also just like, as I was ice skating today and I had to wear a mask, I was like, God, breath really is wet. Like breath is so wet.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm like breathing out, I don't know, like a woolly mammoth's testicle sweat. Like,
Yeah.
it all comes back, it's so, but without that emptying, there's no space for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I'm feeling that too. And especially like in terms of like my relationship with money.
Uh-huh.
And then how that relates to sex and how that relates to like relationships. And like my relationship with money is very, right now it's changing. I'm starting to have like reverence for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm practicing now, like holding the critique of the monetary system and the reverence for the reception of money, because it still represents resources, abundance, like on an esoteric level.
Currency.
Holding those simultaneously is so just like, it's really
the juicy paradox. That's a juicy paradox.
It is a juicy paradox. It's so, it's so weird.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's so necessary for rewriting our mythos about currency. Like the myth that we carry about currency are ready to be rewritten. And I think it's by having the capacity to hold both, like you're part of that edit. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do. Yeah. And then like emptying, right? Like, it's almost like I'm emptying that, like I'm dying to that belief structure around money and my victimization around that. And cause like, look at me, like I'm still extremely privileged despite having like grown up poor. I have like more opportunity to change that now than like any person probably who's ever been poor, like in the history of humanity. Yeah. And definitely more so than other people who are like more poor than I and didn't have the support systems that I have. So it's like, am I going to be married to this narrative, or am I going to use the tools I already have to like be able to be one of the people that actually helps make a better system for people who might not be able to do what I can now do, right? Like, I
think it's far better to metabolize a lot of wealth than to reject it.
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of a no-brainer.
The simple like thing, the simple way I have of putting it is like, who can I help?
Absolutely.
If I'm in the same situation as the people that I want to help. Like, I'm not helping, I'm just standing in solidarity with the same wounds. Right. Exactly. So I'm reinforcing the wounds and I'm perpetuating them. Exactly. Whereas like if I can alchemize them and I can turn that into wealth somehow, which I'm fully capable of doing, I can help other people then alchemize that and turn that into wealth. That's what I'd rather do. I'd rather do that than perpetuate the wounds. That's just the best thing for me to do.
That sounds like a good plan.
So that's the emptying part. And then, like you said, like you need to empty in order to like have the space be filled. And it's like, all of the space that could be filled with wealth is filled with programming. And like, as I release the programming, it's like more wealth pours into that space because something needs to fill the space, right?
Right now, if your cup is filled with like, money is bad, people who make it are bad, billionaires are bad, everybody's bad, and anything to do with accumulating wealth is bad, then you're actually creating the same kind of hoarding that you're critical of.
Yeah.
Like being able to empty that cup and let something come into it and really developing that metabolic agility it'll apply to wealth, it'll apply to love, it'll apply to anything that kind of like needs to stay and float, creativity, all of it, it's like, no, I don't need to hold on to any of those fucking old ideas. None of them. None of them are me. None of them are even true. We've all just kind of agreed on them for some weird reason. Because some people, it benefited a few. It's like,
right.
Yeah, we don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to collude with that bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for joining me for this conversation. I never know where it's going to go. And it's always I've been like surprised each time and had such a great time. It's really lovely. Yeah. And it's been just so joyful and like deep and joyful and just, I don't know. I'm loving it.
Me too. Thank you so much. This has been really great. I appreciate having this like time and space to connect with you because you always have just so much great, like your energy is just great.
I really enjoy you too. It's good. I was saying to my boyfriend, like, I do feel like I'm starting to see like just a sphere is emerging of people and ideas and like where I feel more at home than I've ever felt in my life. It's like, oh, I'm finally, the time I was born for is finally emerging. Oh, now it's all starting to make sense. Like, okay, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like this is, it's here. Yay. It was so
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was on the phone with my friend Eric earlier, and Eric and I have a very interesting relationship where we've always felt like we've always known each other. We've always acted like we've always known each other, and we've only like hung out in person 3 times. But we've known each other for years, but we've only hung out in person 3 times. And the most recent time was in August. And we all it was me and him and a bunch of other like mutual friends. We all did acid in the woods together. And then we had like a crazy experience where like we felt like we could read each other's minds and stuff. And it was pretty wild. But then I was on the phone with him today. And this is like the first time we've had like a phone call. And I was telling him like, Eric, I feel like you and I, and there's this third friend that like, we have this weird, like triadic energy between us that is just like really, and I was like, Eric, I feel like you and I and this other person, like we're like, this is going to sound fucking weird.
I love it.
We're not like, we always come back and we like reincarnate like at weird times in like human history, like where like the paradigm is shifting to like help synthesize all of the like ancient wisdom with like what's new and emerging. And so like that sense of you were like, oh, this is the time I was born for. I was like, I had a conversation just earlier about this same feeling of like, this is the time, like, this is why I'm here. It's happening now. And it's funny. It's like, even in like a non-mythic, non-esoteric sense, it's like, that's a feeling I feel like a lot of people are having where it's like, when a shift happens, we can feel it. And we're enlivened by it. You know, it brings something out of us. We have to rise to the fucking occasion.
Exactly. And it's like, yeah. Yeah. Like when I took the Bodhisattva vows a couple of years ago, like just to like, or like a year or so ago, just to like, I was like, yeah, I'm doubling down on this. Like, I am so ready for this work. Like, I was born to do this, and I feel like I've done it before, and I'm psyched to do it again. Like, joyfully, enthusiastically, like, let's get her done. And suffering, like, get people the fuck out of their own way. You know, like, so that the havoc can stop being wreaked of like ancestral generational trauma and just like endless. I mean, that's why I'm so interested in your thoughts about ancestors and emergence and how that relates to like the Buddhist concept of hungry ghosts and then addiction and trauma and like how we reiterate these things. And so now can we emerge from all those reiterations? Can the spiral open? Can we see that? Can we look at lineage from a spiral point of view?
Yeah.
Which seems more realistic anyway.
Absolutely. Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, I would love to talk more about that with you at some time.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, and I want to come to more of your things.
Yeah. I do. I have more things coming up. I'm having another automatic poetry workshop probably at the end of the month.
Oh, cool.
But and then I have to come up with another ritual to do for like spring. So that'll be a thing. And then
empty out, and then it gets, the ceremony is revealed like a peony is, it just opens.
Yeah,
there it is.
That's literally what happens.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
thank you for your guidance and
coming all the way back to ease.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Fuck Suffering podcast with me, your hostess, Ray Hance. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, come to rayhance.com, REIHANCE, and send us a message. If you're interested in the book that I use to do readings on this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an Evolutionary I Ching. That's my book, and it's available on Amazon. If you would love to help us grow our audience, because you enjoyed the podcast so much, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And in the meantime, God, we really can't fuck suffering until we trust suffering. And in a wild existential kink, we are all in that together. Till next time. Bye.